And we weren't talking about anything, but I was wanting to connect through communication. So I'm like, hey, would you mind putting your phone away? I want to talk. And
I got a little huffy. So what were you talking about on date night?
Yeah, so we had a week where you were away doing counseling for a week. So it was very intense, a lot of hours. And so we had planned a date night right after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad choice.
Yeah. And so we go out on this date, and you're still feeling maxed out from the week. I'm like, oh, finally, I've got you all to myself. We're on a date.
So I was working like 12-hour days.
Yeah.
So we're talking maxed out, like I was maxed out.
Yeah, and you had really good reason to be totally fried. I get it. And so the couple of things that happened is when we were driving home, you were on your phone, and we weren't talking about anything, but I was wanting to connect through communication. So I'm like, hey, would you mind putting your phone away? I want to talk. And
I got a little huffy.
Yeah, you did, but there may have been an eye roll or a sigh. I mean, yeah, but then it's kind of like, it's sort of like, what do you want to talk about? And I don't know. I just want to talk.
You wanted me to be available,
right,
to talk as things come to mind, which is part of bonding, is your person's available.
Yeah. But, and so that was okay. We navigated that one, and then we got home and we were watching a show together. And I mean, a lot of times we'll be on our phone off and on while we're watching a show, so that's not unusual. But I think I was feeling just disconnected. I just hadn't felt the reconnection I was hoping for on the date. And so I said, hey, would you mind putting your phone away? And then you did, but again,
I was irritated about it.
Yeah, you were irritated, and it was clear that you were irritated. And at this point, that's when I couldn't contain any longer the emotion that I was feeling, which at some level probably was a feeling of rejection, a feeling of like, so it's not okay to ask for what I want to need. I ask in a respectful and nice way. And then I was done. I'm like, you know what? Fine.
I'm going to bed.
And, and I mean, on one hand, it would have been better if I would have said something like, I need a timeout. We'll figure this out tomorrow. I just am having a lot of emotion right now, and I don't want to blow it up. And it's better that I didn't blow it up.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
It could have turned into an escalating type of thing.
Right. I wasn't in the place, obviously, to hear, and you weren't either, so.
Right. So when we talked about it the next day, because, I mean, one of the things that I like about how we manage our relationship is that, I mean, we fight, we have arguments, we have conflicts as much as anybody, but we are committed to resolving them. And so I woke up still pretty upset about it.
So I do want to mention that we do have arguments, but we don't hit below the belt. We don't belittle each other. We don't call each other names. Yeah. We don't cuss at each other.
That's a good point. Yeah. So the next day I said, hey, I would like to resolve this later. And so what I expressed, which I've already kind of expressed, was what I feel was rejected, but what I fear was that it's no longer okay to ask for what I want and need. And that is what was really stirring in me and making it feel much bigger than even what had happened. Like, we've always been able to ask for what we want and need, and now it seems like it's not okay to do that. Right. Whereas for you, I mean, you had an understandable perspective with emotions tied to it as well, that once we kind of went through what I was feeling, we then switched, okay, what are you feeling?
Yeah, so for me, I was working a lot of hours and I had to be really on during that week intensive, marriage intensive. And so my mind was on the whole time, and you don't just turn that off. So coming down from that, it took a while for my mind just to kind of come down and back to level. And so I think part of that, looking at my phone, was like I was still amped up and needing constant stimulation. Because normally I don't look at my phone while we watch a show. Yeah. I don't like that. It doesn't feel like I'm really in the show. It's not relaxing to me. I like to settle my mind by just, enjoying what's on the show. But my mind was still really stimulated. And so I was using that just to, I don't know, because my mind was revved up.
Yeah. And when we did the what do you feel, what do you fear in this, what you expressed that you feared, I can say it, you can say it.
Well, I don't remember what I feared, but what I felt was controlled. Like, oh, so you're going to control what I can and can't do. Yeah. I can't look at my phone when I want to. And
for sure. And what you shared that you feared was that when you are totally maxed out, that I am going to need from you
more from me.
And that, like, that's what felt like. I need you to see when I'm maxed out that you're not asking more and more from me that I don't have to give.
Yeah.
Which I was able to connect with that.
Yeah.
Because you had connected with what I was feeling, and we were able to navigate through that. And then we were able to sort out, okay, what do we do with this next time?
So let me interject there, because it's not his job to know when I'm maxed out. It's my job to know when I'm maxed out and to communicate that to him. So I don't want to put that responsibility on you. I mean, it would be great if he knew that and recognized that, but that's not his responsibility. That's my responsibility. I'm responsible for me, for my emotions, for how I handle them, for how I communicate them. So a lot of couples get into that, like, well, you should just know that I'm really tired. Well, that's not really fair to put that on the other person.
Yeah. One thing I see in what happened in that whole scenario was that I'm the kind of person who's going to settle or reconnect through connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I get settled by being by myself.
Right. So in that moment, she's maxed out and she's needing to kind of get back to even by zoning out.
Yes.
And I'm needing to connect by, just talking or interacting. That's what I need to fill my tank. So we were both depleted in that moment.
Yeah.
And both needed the very thing that was the opposite of what the other needed.
Which I think happens a lot with couples.
I think it does.
And so we came up with love tank and capacity tank. My capacity tank was zeroed out.
Yeah.
I didn't have any capacity.
Yeah, I love that whole idea of capacity tank. I actually learned that from Brene Brown in one of her specials. She said that her and her husband will do that. Like, how much do you have in the tank? And be like, I'm a solid 7. And everyone's like, well, I'm a 2. It's just like, I'll pick up the slack and we'll order pizza, So it's understanding where each other are in terms of capacity. And then also the whole idea of the love tank is another great one. It's how connected do I feel right now? Or feel loved, supported, the idea of a love tank. Yeah. So to understand, hey, if my love tank's low and your capacity tank's low, okay, we're going to need to navigate that carefully. And we can each give some. I can be like, hey, if your capacity tank is lower, then what can we do that will honor that, and vice versa with me with the love tank.
Yeah, and it's really finding what is a win-win. So what we've came up with was the weeks that I do in...
Well, before you say what we came up with, we first brainstormed as many options as we could think of.
Yeah.
So you start with, we just won't go on a date on the week that you're working. With I'll just stop doing that job, which isn't viable. So you come up with things that aren't viable options. But sorted out through those different options, usually there's some that are workable.
Yeah. So what we came up with is when I do the week-long marriage intensives, Friday night's usually our date night. That we'll do a date night on Saturday night, and then Friday is this me recovering, and not to have any expectations of me on Fridays.
Yeah, and then we'll move our date night to Saturday rather than Friday. Couples want to solve problems too quickly. When you try and quote unquote solve the problem before you've actually understood what your partner feels and what they fear under that, and what they feel about what they fear, you end up not solving anything, but you typically escalate the problem, the fight, and then you feel even more disconnected. So starting with where are each of us emotionally and what's going on, and seeking to understand, doing the reflective listening is so big, because once you've done that, then you can actually get somewhere in solving a problem for scenarios that are going to happen again.
Yeah.